plants are people. This is a foundational realization that we have to have in order to engage with plant spirit work on a deeper level. As long as plants remain things, as long as they remain something, or even really someone that is here to serve the exceptional human narrative, something that's here for us to take, for us to harvest, for us to capitalize on, we will never be granted even the first step of access into the deeper green mysteries. And so in order to start deconditioning and decolonizing the heart and the mind from these anti-animistic concepts of plants being things that are here in service of humans, we have to engage with the ancient experience, the ancient perspective of animism. And I say experience and perspective because people really desperately want animism to be a religion. They really want it to be a practice, right? A meditation, something done, and it's not. Animism is the process or the event of experiencing the world being filled with persons, only some of whom are human, right? And there's, of course, plenty of meditations and contemplation and ritual and study that we can do to get to that point, but that's not animism. Animism is the direct engagement of other than human persons in a respectful and reciprocal way. So what I want to chat with you about today is something that we've actually done several videos on before. I'll try to link to the older versions of this down below, but it's something that I like to revisit at least once a year, which is this concept of green animism, how we can work with the plants to bring ourselves back into a world of magic, how we can bring ourselves back into experiencing a world filled with persons and a world that is indwelled by otherness. When most of us were kids, we had these experiences. You know, we had these intuitive drawings towards particular rituals or particular processes or experiences that affirmed that we lived in a world filled with persons. As we get older, you know, some of those behaviors and thoughts become taboo, especially if you're engaged in a, you know, new monotheistic religions. They're very like, don't think that way. So we get shut down, right? So we stop doing it. And so for a lot of this, this is like a reclamation process of going back to something that we innately had when we were children and sort of waking it back up. That's a beautiful part of this because it's already in there. You know, the muscle memory is there. We just have to work out a little bit. Plants can be exceptional teachers for those folks who want to re-engage with the reality of the world. They are not as supportive to transcendentalism. They're not as supportive to ascensionists, right? This is like some big movements within the New Age world right now, this idea of ascending, of getting out of the 3D, of moving towards the 5D. Plants don't support that. People will force them into a box where they do, especially the psychotropic or entheogenic plants, but on a spiritual level, they don't support that. And they don't support transcendentalism. They don't support the concept that the world is a trap, is an illusion, or is a lie. What plants do support is a deeper leaning into the world, leaning further into nature, embracing the earth, the land, as beautiful and whole and holy as it is. There's nothing to escape from. There's nothing to run from, right? In our ancestral fairy faith traditions, we see time and time again that our blessed dead don't float off into outer space. They don't blip out into some five-dimensional realm of existence. No, they return into the land. Right, they move into the realm of fairy, which runs parallel to ours. It exists here, right? It's not somewhere else. It is here. It's just a subtle perspective, right? That maybe can be hard for us to perceive. So when we work with plants, they really inspire this engagement of the presence of otherness. And that presence can be the personhood of plants, obviously. It can be the deeper personhood of animals. Sometimes it can just remind us that other humans are people too, because we can forget that. And then it can initiate us into the indwelling spirits of place, that sometimes a particular outcropping of rocks or a hillock or mountain or river or pond is a person, is indwelled by a conscious individual spirit in the same way that you are a conscious individual spirit. And that because these different beings are persons, it means that we, on a fundamental level, are able to enter into relationship with them. We're able to enter into a reciprocal relationship of respect and mutual benefit with these allies, right? So that's great. Plants, as teachers of animism, occupy a very particular role because for most humans who are not part of an existing animist tradition, because there are lots of them, right? It's not a rare thing. It's easy for us to see humans as persons. It's easy for us to see animals as persons, even like oftentimes we have companion animals and we understand they're unique individuals. They have personalities. They're born, they live, they die. Like we see them, maybe different than us, but we still understand there's personhood. Plants are kind of the first non-human person that really challenges the concept, right? They really say, even this being that is so wholly other than human still has personhood, is still an arcane spirit with consciousness, wisdom, perception, the ability to communicate. They're on a journey, right? Plants are nice because they occupy the same world that we occupy. They're here, right? They're physical beings that share the world with us. And we can watch them grow and we can interact with them. And some people even have these really organic, encounters with plant spirits, which is a beautiful thing. So for me, humans and animals, easy. Plants is where the challenge starts to happen. And then when we get into indwelling spirits of place and, mountains and thunderstorms and all that, it gets a little more challenging for us. But it's still, the work is still important. So we can't do deeper sorceress workings. We can't engage with plant spirit work if the plants aren't persons, because if the plant isn't a person, then who is it or what is it that we are entering into relationship with? If you look at 99% of the books written since the 1950s on herb magic or working with plants or working with herbs in a ritualistic, magico-ritual way, you will simply see the plants listed out as what they're good for. This plant is good for protection. This plant is good for calling in love. This plant is good for cleansing and purification. And this is toxic, right? This idea, when we present plants in this way, it implies that their existence is limited to how they can benefit us, what they can do for me. And it's also problematic because while that plant may have a particular virtue of protection, that's only one angle of who they are. We're seeing that angle because it's relevant. It's part of the communication that we have with them, but they're a whole person outside of that, right? We talk a lot about engaging with somebody at their job, right? And saying, oh, this person is a professional at their job, and forgetting that when they leave that job, they're a whole person outside of that place. They have relationships and goals and dreams and fears and challenges and successes that go beyond what they do from their 9 to 5. So we do that to plants too. We say this plant is good for this as it relates to me, a human person, the most important, person in the room, or the only person in the room. This is often the case. Forgetting that it's a full spirit. And so those folks who engage more deeply in the sorceress arts and the green arts, meaning that we're connecting more deeply to the plants and the creation of harmony through magic, medicine, and ritual, we do that by moving through this fake wall that prevents plants from being fully sovereign beings. And it takes a lot of work. The relationships and the realizations are very, very hard won. I've been doing this work for 25 plus years, and I still wake up every single day a newbie, right? Every day a newbie, every day trying to navigate this whole process. But the sorceress arts, the green arts, are beautiful because they allow us to start having intentional relationships with the world that we live in, with the land that nourishes us, with the sky that we're under, with the different beings, the non-human beings, the other than human beings, the more than human beings that share spaces with us, right? Rather than walking through the world thinking, I'm the only person here, right? There's lots of living things here, but I'm the person in the room. I'm the one with personhood, you know? Um, Rather than thinking that humans are the most important person on the planet, that everything that exists in nature exists to support the human narrative. Um, we get to step back into the truth of things, which is that we are just one part of the fractal tapestry that is nature, right? That we're not more special or less special than. We don't have right to be dominant over or submissive to. Like, we are just as much part of nature as river, bear, tree, mountain, rainstorm. And when we do that, when we have that realization, aside from it knocking us down a few pegs, egotistically, which is always a good thing for the human animal, um, it allows us to live in that world of magic again. Suddenly we walk out into the world and we are surrounded by potential allies. We're surrounded by potential relationships and friends. On a purely self-centered level, we are surrounded by persons who, through our intentional and reciprocal engagement, can bring things into our lives that go far beyond what any human is capable of. They're other, right? They bring otherness into our lives. And that's fantastic. Like, why would we not want, a whole toolbox full of blessings and virtues that go beyond the narrow abilities of the human person and what kind of space we hold in the world? So green animism is this concept that we can work with the green, we can work with our plant allies to explore, embrace, and then eventually experience the concept of animism in a truly deep and profound way. And when that happens, now we can communicate with plants. We can learn directly from the plants. We can be guided directly from the plants. We can openly share our human experiences with them, which is also very cool and very valuable to them. And then we move from, whatever reductionist, this for that kind of thing we're doing now, into a path of true sorcery, of true transformation through relationships. And sorcery differs from magic because sorcery is based on relationship and it focuses on transformation. It is not the will of the magician's power, what the magician does and uses that creates the process. It is community, right? It is allyship and reciprocity that creates change, and that is where it differs. And I know that word gets a lot of slack, thanks to Hollywood and all that, but it is a beautiful word, and it's a word that I fully, wholeheartedly embrace in the practice that I do. And if nothing else, we get to walk through the world feeling part of. We get to walk through nature feeling seen and seeing, rather than analyzing and figuring out which box everyone and everything fits into. What is it good for? How can it serve me? We get to start experiencing the wholeness of these beings, who they are, how they show up for themselves, right? And I'll tell you, as hard as it is, and I struggle with this all day, every day, when we also allow that to move into our human relationships, it's so, so beautiful, right? When we can start letting other humans be just their whole self, outside of our expectations, outside of our judgments, outside of the boxes that we've put people in, the stereotyping, whatever, and we let them show up in the full force of who they are, then we can really communicate and navigate other human beings in those complex relationships, right? It's a pretty cool thing. So animism is at the root of all of our deepest ancestral traditions. I don't care where in the world you come from. If you go back probably not too far, you will find this philosophy, this experience, and the rituals that come from it being at the root of what your deep ancestors did. And when you read the folklore, when you read the plant lore, even from just a couple of hundred years ago, you will be able to see the language of animism being used to describe the personhood of plants and how we can relate to them. So share with me your experiences of how you reawoken your animistic experience, or struggles that you're having, or what you do to try and nourish this perspective and experience in life. It's always very cool. I will put some book recs in the details below as well. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week. Take care.